Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are joining from. And thank you for attending today's webinar. We will begin the presentation shortly. Actually, it is already time, so let's begin. Welcome to our webinar today on AWS backup and recovery and how Notre Dame maintains uptime on AWS web services. My name is Binoy Das. I am a partner solution architect for Amazon Web Services, and I will be your host and moderator for today's presentation. A couple of housekeeping items to begin with. So when you join this webinar, you have selected either to join by phone or a computer audio. Now, if for any reason you would like to change your audio selection, you can do that by using the audio pane in the control panel on your screen. You will see that you will also have the opportunity to submit the question from this control panel. Feel free to type question along the when the webinar is in progress, and we will have a Q&A session at the end where we will try to address as many questions as we can. Also, at the end of the event, we are going to send you a brief link, a link to a brief survey. So please stay connected with us until the end of this broadcast and do submit your feedback because your opinions count. And lastly, the PowerPoint presentation will be available through a slide share along with a recording of the webinar on YouTube, and expect to receive that via an email about 2 to 3 days after the conclusion of this event. So that's all for the housekeeping. Again, welcome to today's live webinar, How Notre Dame Maintains Uptime on Amazon Web Services. I am Binoy. I'm Binoy Das from AWS. I'm the moderator and host for today's webinar. You will also hear from Sebastian Straub, who is a system engineer in N2WS, an APN partner. And lastly, we will also hear from Aaron Wright, who is a system engineer at University in Notre Dame, who is our customer today. So in this webinar today, you will learn about backup and recovery on AWS. You will also learn about a product called Cloud Protection Manager from our partner N2WS and learn about how you can use CPM product to access, protect, and restore critical data on AWS. Finally, we will hear about how University of Notre Dame uses N2WS product on top of AWS for data protection and their business continuity. Lastly, we will follow with a Q&A session. So let's begin. So backup on recovery and recovery on AWS, this is one of the major uses areas on AWS that we are seeing today. There are many organizations starting from startups to enterprise, large enterprises who choose AWS to run their major workload and also use AWS for backup and recovery for their cloud or on-premise workload. So why is backup and recovery important? So before going there, let's take a quick look about what are the drawbacks of the traditional backup and recovery. So in traditional backup and recovery, as you all might know, you have to manually back up your sensitive data to maintain this business continuity in the event of any failure or any downtime. Now, because of that, you need to secure a large amount of storage. So the manual backup becomes increasingly difficult as your storage needs scale up. Because in today's data-driven environment, the data scales up faster than you can physically scale up your storage infrastructure. Obviously, because of these needs, it brings with it high cost of building and maintaining your on-premise storage hardware, which is also expensive. And last but not the least, meeting compliance regulation, because most of the businesses have data that they're storing, data about customers or other sensitive data, and they do need to meet the compliance regulation, and it applies in the same way to the backup data as it is to their operational live data. So all in all, setting up backup and recovery manually, either using your on-premise or co-location solution, requires quite a bit of effort, and that's why you can use AWS backup and recovery solution, because when you are on AWS, AWS does the heavy lifting, the undifferentiated heavy lifting behind the infrastructure, and also the AWS partner offering that are there to help you so that you can focus more on what matters to your business. So what are some of the benefits of the AWS backup and recovery? First of all, as you know, the AWS has 100 plus services, and any backup and recovery solution that you implement on AWS, they are all integrated with any other AWS services that you are using. AWS Cloud is also very secure, and we encrypt data and tightly control your access to any resources that you have on AWS. It's also very easy to maintain because you don't need to buy or maintain any on-premise hardware. You don't need to plan the capacity. It's all pay as you go. As your storage needs scales up, you can scale up the resources you need on AWS. And because it is pay as you go, the cost is low. In fact, we keep reducing our price every so often. So since the beginning, we have reduced our price many times, and that is possible because of the large economy of scale that we have by serving our hundreds of thousands of active customers. Let's take a quick look about some of the AWS services that are relevant for storage. The oldest service that on AWS platform that we had was Amazon Simple Storage Service. And this service is very versatile in a sense that it's an object-oriented storage, and it's designed to store any type of data that you might have. It could range from individual files to even the whole image of your hard drive. Then you have Amazon Glacier. So Amazon Glacier is similar to Amazon S3. It's very highly durable. It's low cost, but on top of that, Glacier is designed for a very long-term storage. So when you have data on S3, and you can take your data through the different lifecycle stages as your data ages. And finally, when it comes time to have your data saved for a long time so that you can recover the data in a moment's notice later, you can move it to Amazon Glacier, and that further drives the costs down. So think about Amazon Glacier as a secured vault for your data. And then finally, we have elastic block storage, and think of these as your network attached hard drive that you can use either directly on your virtual server, which are the EC2 instance, and also you can back up these whole elastic block storage images on Amazon S3. So these are some of the major storage services that we have. And obviously we have the database services, relational and non-relational, to go along with it. And as we will learn later, there are many partner solutions that actually uses all of these services together to provide you with a comprehensive end-to-end backup and storage solution on AWS. So this picture shows here the global scale and infrastructure of AWS. So currently, as you can see, our data centers are clustered around 18 regions all over the world. So what that means to you is your storage and data storage is distributed, and it is resilient against failure. In case of failure of any region or zone, which is very unlikely, you can still recover and continue your businesses using the other zones that we have. So now we are going to go into the benefits of APN Partner, which you will hear the story live from N2WS. Some of the benefits are that partner solution often help you easily configure your storage solution. Asynchronous replication of your enterprise data store helps your rapid recovery, and policy-based backups. Lastly, this discussion cannot complete without discussion about security. So in AWS, we have third-party certification and accreditation from a wide range of regulators and industry bodies. So here is some of the list of some of those. So you will see we are ISO 27001 for information security management, ISO 9001 for quality management and system requirements. We are also SOC 1, 2, and 3 compliant, and you can also have PCI DSS compliant and HIPAA compliant data safely stored on AWS. That being said, I am going to hand it over to Sebastian Straub, who is a system engineer from N2WS, and he will walk you through the disaster recovery solution cloud protection manager. Sebastian.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Benoit. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about operational backup and disaster recovery, and also disaster recovery for AWS. All right. So the first slide that I'd like to introduce you to is the AWS shared responsibility model. Now, you might have seen this slide before. This is actually something that we plugged right off of the AWS website. And it's basically two models. First one is what you're seeing in orange. That's AWS's responsibility. It's the responsibility for security off the cloud. And what you see right above it, that's the customer's responsibility for security in the cloud. So basically, AWS is responsible for patching and fixing flaws within the infrastructure, and the customer, that's you, is responsible for patching and fixing the guest OS and applications within that. The same thing also goes for AWS maintains the configuration of the infrastructure devices, and then once again, the customer is responsible for the configuration of the guest OS, databases, and applications. So there is a shared responsibility model. It's not all AWS. Some of the responsibility is also for the customer. So why you need to protect your AWS? We already saw the responsibility model, so let's talk about it. Oops, that's probably one of the worst words that you can hear, and that would also be human error. Of course, never ever happens, right? That you apply a wrong patch, you configure something incorrectly. Well, it can happen. It will happen. The same thing also goes for AZ failures, ransomware. Not a day goes by where we don't see something like that in the news. And of course, also compliance and data security. I need to make sure that I'm compliant with the requirements to actually back up and secure all of my data. And last but not least, of course, also EBS failure. It does happen, and that's exactly where N2WS will deliver the promise of the cloud. So what you're seeing here in this puzzle tile, on the right side of the screen, AWS provides APIs and CLI, EBS snapshots. And that's something we already talked about. Those are basically the manual backups that you can produce. The regions and availability zones, durable storage, and of course also the Lambda scripting, which kind of sort of helps you then to also prepare these snapshots. Now, on the other side, on the right side of the screen, and that's where N2WS enhances your experience with the cloud. That's we simplify the entire management of all of these services. Now, of course, we also provide application consistent backups. We make the disaster recovery cross regions and also across accounts very, very, very simple. Then a complete auditing and reporting trail, plus also the alerting, so I will always find out if something is happening. And last but not least, probably a really important feature is also the file level recovery. So it's not an all or nothing approach for your environment. Application consistent backups, that's something that's extremely important for your databases. So MongoDB, Oracle, MySQL, Cassandra, Aurora, or Postgres, whichever one you use, we do provide application consistent backup for these databases without taking your systems offline. So theoretically, you could continually produce backups of your databases throughout the day, even in high volume production environments. Cross-region disaster recovery. We already heard from Benoit about this. So you have 18 different data centers around the world. Long gone are the days where Iron Mountain is showing up with a truck outside and picks up your hard drives and then ships them off to a secure location. You can literally produce backups off your production workloads within seconds with just a few mouse clicks. And this will really protect you. It will make sure that all of your data is always available. Then the next part is, of course, cross-account disaster recovery. If you want to sleep well tonight, don't do what I'm going to tell you next. Don't go to Google and type in the words code spaces. That's a nightmare in itself. It's a company which about 4 years ago went out of business within 24 hours. And they did all the right things. They had an AWS account. They performed backups throughout the day. They also had cross-region backups. But then somebody got a hold of their AWS account information, hacked them. They said, we're not going to pay. And then they were basically wiped out from one moment to the next. So cross-account disaster recovery is extremely important because that will ensure that you also have a backup vault, another version of your backups ready to go in case something really terrible does happen. That gives me the ability then to spin up my data either in that account or from that account. Also, if you really think about it, it doesn't cost you much either because you're not actually holding another running version of these instances. It's really just cold storage. You're just storing a backup of your data in another account. Also, of course, single file recovery, right? It's not always an all or nothing. You don't have to recover the entire workload, the entire volume just to get to that one little file or that one folder that accidentally was deleted. That'd be crazy. So Cloud Protection Manager from N2W will allow you to use a very easy to learn graphical user interface to browse through the files and folders and really only retrieve what you absolutely must have. Now, forgive my humor, but yes, short of an earth-ending event, really nothing can happen to your data because using N2WS, you do have the ability to perform these cross-region, cross-account, even cross-different data center backups all around the world. So as I mentioned, short of an earth-ending event, nothing will bring down your IT. Now, after all of this, you're probably wondering, well, how can I get started with all of this? It's pretty simple, actually. AWS Marketplace, you will find us there as a top-rated backup solution. All you have to do is just simply type in our company name into AWS. We're the first hit in the search results, and then you can also sign up for a 30-day completely free trial of Cloud Protection Manager. Let me give you a quick overview of N2WS. We were founded in 2012. The first version of our product was released in 2013, so we've been around for quite a long time. We are the top-rated backup solution in the AWS Marketplace. We're also headquartered in West Palm Beach, Florida. We have a development center in Haifa, Israel. And also, we have several different satellite offices across the world. One of the things that we always come across is people ask, well, what makes Cloud Protection Manager from N2WS so fast? It's because we're a cloud-native technology. We're purpose-built for AWS. We're as close to AWS technology as possible. And it's pretty simple to get a hold of Cloud Protection Manager because we're just distributed as an AMI through the AWS Marketplace. So N2WS and AWS can help you with the following. Obviously, we can protect your AWS workloads, whichever that might be, if it's EC2, RDS, or Redshift. And we're actually going to show you some of these examples as well. For all of that, we use snapshot-based backups. So they're extremely fast and extremely efficient. So theoretically, you could take backups off your mission-critical data every few minutes because you're really only backing up what's important and only backing up the deltas from one backup to the next. As we already discussed, you do have the ability to actually use N2W to recover single files or, if needed, an entire environment in less than 60 seconds. More often than not, I actually talk to prospective customers when we talk about recovery times. I usually hear, oh, we're very proud of the fact that our recovery time is only 2 hours. Well, with Cloud Protection Manager by AWS, your recovery time would be less than 60 seconds from a complete outage. Using Cloud Protection Manager will allow you to automate your entire backup lifecycle, which then, of course, also means that your technicians can actually do something better with their time than worry about the backups and preparing manual backups, creating scripts, maintaining that script library. All of that is going to be a thing of the past. And of course, protect against malicious or accidental data loss. It does happen. It will happen. It happens all the time. So that's why the ability to have a recovery cross regions and cross accounts is more and more important. All right, which then, of course, takes me to a demo, which means everything that I just told you, I can actually show you all of this live, so it's not just going to be some slides till your eyes glaze over. So as I mentioned, Cloud Protection Manager, you can just simply pick it up in the AWS Marketplace. All you have to do is search for our company name, N2W. And this is the free trial version. First thing that you have to do is you have to choose which region you'd like to spin up Cloud Protection Manager in. Pretty simple. Hit the continue button, and then Cloud Protection Manager starts spinning up in your environment. It doesn't take a long time. It takes about 60 seconds. Once spun up, you can communicate with Cloud Protection Manager like any other appliance through a web browser. This is what it looks like. First time you're going to do this, it looks slightly different. It's going to ask you to agree to the license agreement and a couple other things as well. What's important about this screen is this username and password has absolutely nothing to do with your AWS username and password, which means that users who need to have access to backup and restore functionality don't ever need to have access to your AWS infrastructure, which is also really beneficial for managed service providers, because I can give customers the ability to prepare backups off their environment without the ability to see anybody else's infrastructure. All of that is done with a single installation of Cloud Protection Manager. And you also see we do support identity providers. So we do support Active Directory, Federation Services, Okta, that sort of thing, and SAML authentication. So what we're going to do now is we're going to log in as a root admin user who gets to see everything. So this is what Cloud Protection Manager looks like. I know it looks a little bit confusing, but trust me, it's actually a super simple product once you get to know it. You have this blue band up here. The first tab is Backup Monitor. That's my single pane of glass. No longer do I have to look for all of my backups across different regions, across different accounts. All of that information you're going to find right here in chronological order. Of course, I can start filtering this by different backup policies, by different AWS accounts that we're backing up, and also Cloud Protection Manager users. Next to that, you have policies and schedules. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to bore you by showing you how to create schedules. But let's take a look at policies. That's where we define what do we want to back up. I already have a few policies in place, and if I create a new policy, I can assign a policy to an AWS account, and I can also assign a policy to a Cloud Protection Manager user or groups of users. I can then define generations to save, that's my retention period, and I can also easily associate multiple schedules to a policy. We almost have everything we need, except that we still need to define what we want to back up. See, over here, I already have a policy, and on the backup targets, I can see that we're currently backing up one Windows file server in this policy. Of course, if I wanted to, I can add additional resources to this backup policy. So I have the ability to add instances, plus all of the volumes that are attached to it. I don't have to start figuring out which volumes do I actually need and how do I really need to connect them with the different devices. I also have the option to only back up the volumes, perhaps data at rest unattached volumes, RDS databases, Aurora clusters, Redshift clusters, and also DynamoDB tables are no problem at all. I can add these instances, and it really doesn't matter what type of instances I want to back up. What you're going to see is Aaron is actually going to talk about this a little bit more. He uses this functionality to back up all kinds of different databases, all kinds of different EC2 instances as well. Now in here, I have access to the different regions that I have access to based on the policy that we created, and then I can choose the different resources that I want to back up. Nothing needs to be installed on any of these resources in order for them to show up. Essentially, Cloud Protection Manager works right underneath the AWS account level. Once you hit selected, we're going to start creating operational backups of these instances in the same region where they're currently residing, which is pretty good, but it doesn't give you that disaster recovery capability we talked about earlier. So let me show you that as well. And that's done right next to the Backup Targets button. That's my DR button right here. So here I can define, well, every so often, I'd like you to prepare a disaster recovery backup into the following regions. By the way, this can also be multiple regions. So as we already talked about, unless that earth-ending event happens, you have the ability to create additional backups across the world. Now, down here, this is another feature we talked about, cross-account disaster recovery into a completely unrelated AWS account, just in case something terrible would happen to our AWS account. This gives me that peace of mind. And as you can see, it's so easy. It's really just a few mouse clicks. Why wouldn't you want to do this? Why wouldn't you want to have that peace of mind? A couple other things before we actually perform a recovery. We do support notifications, so I can always find out anything that's happening. I can send out daily summaries. I can also manage the different users who have access to Cloud Protection Manager in the different ways I'd like to give them access, and in a very granular manner, I can assign permissions. Now let's actually perform recovery. Now, let's say we wanted to recover that Windows file server we just talked about. So I'm going to filter this differently, so it makes that list a lot more manageable. Here I have my backup sets over the different days. I chose to perform daily backups, but as I mentioned, if you wanted to perform backups every few minutes, that's completely doable. Then over here under Recover, I have the choice to perform a very granular backup. So I can restore either to the original region where the data resided or into my disaster recovery region. I also have the option to recover into a different account, and I also have the option to recover from a different account, because remember, we actually prepared a disaster recovery backup into a different account. The advantage here is that you could even use Cloud Protection Manager as a migration tool to migrate data from one AZ to another AZ, from one region to another, or even from one account to another account. Some of our customers have gotten really crafty with this. And then here on the right side of the screen, those are our actual recover functionality modes. We have three different ones. Instance recovery is going to recover the entire instance plus all of the volumes that are attached to it. Again, I don't have to figure out all of the different volumes. I don't have to recover them one by one and then start reattaching them to the different instances. Cloud Protection Manager is going to manage all of that for me. Very simple, just a few mouse clicks. Now, if I wanted to, I also have the option to recover the volumes, and Cloud Protection Manager will handle all of the reattachment for me. Now, in my case, I only have one volume here, but if I would have many, you would just simply see a list, and I can pick and choose what I want to recover. And then last but not least, I also have the Explorer functionality. Remember, that's what we spoke about earlier. That gives us the ability to actually only pick and choose the folders and files that we need, and not an all or nothing approach. And as you can also tell, we are still within the Cloud Protection Manager web portal, which means, once again, nobody needs to have access to your AWS infrastructure merely to perform backups or restores. Now I can start browsing through this. Now, this happens to be a Windows server, but as I already mentioned, Cloud Protection Manager is completely OS agnostic. It doesn't care if it's Windows, doesn't care if it's Linux. It doesn't even care if the data is encrypted or not, because CPM, Cloud Protection Manager by N2W, does support backup of encrypted instances and encrypted volumes across regions and even across accounts without me as the end user having to worry about the KMS keys. Cloud Protection Manager will just simply manage all of that for me on the back end, completely transparent. They're very easy. All right, talk is cheap. Let's actually perform a recovery. So I would say let's take a database server. This is one of my database server policies, my Linux farm policy, which happens to contain a SQL database. Now let's pretend that one of my databases failed. So I'm going to click that recover button, and in this policy I have more than one instance. So here's my Apache, my SQL. Now let's only pick the MySQL instance. That's what we want to recover. I'm going to click on Instance Recovery. It gives me a few more options. So here I have now the option to spin this into a different availability zone, a different VPC, maybe assign it to a different subnet. I could also assign it to a different security group if I really wanted to. I even have the option to change the instance type as we're performing the recovery. We also preserve tags. So if you have custom tags that are already assigned to your data, to your instances, we preserve these tags, apply them to the backups. You can still run your reports. And then we're going to preserve and reapply these tags to the recovered data. I don't use static IP, so let me get rid of that. And down here, that's my recover instance button. If you click that, it's going to tell you, are you sure you want to do this? You want to recover this instance? Absolutely. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. So operation succeeded and one instance was launched. I can actually show you what that looks like within my EC2 console. All I have to do is just simply refresh this screen. We're going to be able to see this data being reconstituted right in front of our eyes. There it is. Now, right now, it's still in pending, and it's probably going to stay like that for another 20, 25 seconds. Yes, you heard right. It's really that short. Now, over here, that button is still yellow. It's going to turn green in a moment. The moment that button turns green, because of a feature that Amazon calls that lazy loading feature, you'll actually be able to make use of that instance instantaneously, which then means in case of my SQL database, I can immediately start hitting with SQL transactions. It's not going to time out. You're not going to get any errors, even though my status checks are still running. So yes, that's how fast a complete recovery of an instance works within Cloud Protection Manager. Now, I think I know what your next question would be. Yeah, but my entire workload is probably not just one single instance. And that's where Cloud Protection Manager really starts to shine because it scales extremely well. It really doesn't matter if we're recovering one instance or 20 instances, the recovery time stays exactly the same because the moment we issue that recover command, we're actually making use of AWS infrastructure. So that means you're dealing with the full power and speed of the AWS infrastructure. So that's why you can drastically reduce your RPO and RTO using Cloud Protection Manager. All right, so now we're going to switch back to the slides. So now that concludes my demo. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Aaron Wright, who will give you some insight into Notre Dame's real-life experience with AWS and N2WS. So Aaron, please take it away.
Thanks, Sebastian. Thank you for that introduction. Hello, everyone, and good morning and good afternoon. My name is Aaron Wright. I am a system engineer for the University of Notre Dame, and I work for the Office of Information Technology. I've been here approximately 15 years and with 20 years of IT experience and 24 years of military experience. Quickly, I'm going to give you an overview of the history of Notre Dame and our department and our journey to the cloud and how we got there and how we migrated and protected our assets. There we go. Here's our presentation. How we protect our assets and summarize the presentation, our future in the cloud. So let's go ahead and talk about the history of the university. The University of Notre Dame began in the late cold winter afternoon, November 26, 1842, when a young 28-year-old French priest named Reverend Edward Sorin and 7 companions, all of them from the members of a recent established congregation of Holy Cross, took possession of 524 snow-covered acres from the bishops of Vicence and given them the Indiana mission fields. That man, Father Sorin, named the fledgling school in honor of Our Lady, his native tongue, La Université de Notre Dame d'Aluc, the University of Our Lady of the Lake. January 15, 1844, the university was thus officially chartered by the Indiana legislature. Who is OIT? Well, OIT, as I mentioned before, well, we are ranked 11th to Computer World top 100 IT places to work for among large IT companies. Our main purpose or responsibility is we are the central division that supports enterprise-wide computing on campus. It provides the products and the service that you will use every day to complete tasks related to your studies or your job. And how do we support that university? Well, with our mission and vision statements. We serve as a trusted advisor to technology partners. We collaborate with campus and external constituents to steward the university's digital assets by delivering secure, reliable, efficient technology solutions and experts that enable them to achieve their goals. And definitely our vision, we are robust, dependable, integrated and innovative information technology service that supports, that will inspire other partners to seek out the ideas to intercept through the lifespan cycle. We are one of the top religious affiliated schools in the United States, and we support over 12,000 students and 6,000 faculty and staff. So let's talk about the journey a little bit. One of the main reasons why we went to the cloud is for the following. We were closing down our data center, but we had to find a data center that reduces the cost and it's flexible, resilient, sustainable, scalable, cost savings, and agility. Reducing the need to have hardware, this will give us the ability to increase our IT service demands for faculty, staff, and students. To this date, we have 80% of our services migrated to AWS, with the goal in mind to have 90% at the end calendar year, which would benefit us by cost savings. Some of the quick services that we've already migrated in our project is our ERP system, which is Banner. That right there has over 260 dependencies. Our virtualization is Citrix, and we've converted that over to remote apps. Our document management system, OnBase, is another proud integration or migration to the cloud. So far, as of today, we moved 828 offerings, but we have another 47 to go. So how did we get there? Well, it all began when we were looking at our web services, our main web page, www.nd.edu. We were hosting primarily on our on-premise data center. Well, our concerns were how to maintain communication to just not to the internal campus, but to the outside world. And our fear was to have our data center was interrupted. Well, we decided to do a proof of concept, and we've taken our web services and put them out in the cloud. And we noticed how easy it was to migrate the data and the sustainability and reliability of AWS. Well, with that said, in 2014, we decided to move it forward and transition our data center to the cloud. We obviously had to do the analysis of this, what services need to go in the cloud, what could we move, what may have to stay behind, how we migrated that services, and what resources do we need to get this project done. And we started off with the easiest services first, ones that were single services that we could easily migrate over to the cloud. Then eventually worked our way up to the intermediate services, then to our enterprise services. But the real question came was during the project, we really need a centralized backup software, and through the AWS marketplace, we chose AWS. And that was the best option at that time. Currently, we're running 2 instances of CPM, Cloud Protection Manager, one for our primary AWS account, and the second one is in our GovCloud account. Our CPM instances are in separate accounts using IAM incident roles. So in case if we were ever to get compromised, we had those backup appliances running elsewhere, and we would lose the ability to restore. Our primary data center we back up EC2 instances and databases. There we also have data protection for disaster recovery enabled. So we do have another account where we put data of copies of snapshots in RDS and other instances that we need to protect to the data center. When we originally configured it, it took only like 30 minutes to set up. But before you do configure, I would recommend that you look at the documentation of N2WS and use the assumer roles in those permissions. We primarily do crash consistent backups. With that said, there is currently 530 instances that we're currently backing up, which includes Windows and Linux. We did something a little bit different in the combined efforts of backing up Oracle and SQL. Our database administrators do the majority of our backup of our databases using RMAN and SQL customized script backups. We do crash consistent backups for the root drives or Oracle or Windows and Linux servers, but their DBAs are the ones that are running the backups to run RMAN scheduling and SQL scheduling to do the backups. And those backups are, that data is sent to the S3 bucket. Furthermore, we also do backups for RDS. So with the RDS being a containerized service and it does its own backups, we needed to figure out how we could get those backups to another account. So with Cloud Protection Manager, we implemented backing up RDS, and that way we can have a snapshot in our DR account. Furthermore, there is the future, there's the future project where we're going to start working on DynamoDB to start protecting those assets and see how that works. So we're excited about the recent announcement from N2WS when they said they were protecting DynamoDB. So we talk about resilience and compliant and cost-effective and standardizing. Well, how do we get there as an organization? Well, the resilience that comes from is our environment. If our environment were to go out from outage, attack, or failure, we can easily recover within AWS because of their redundancy across regions and availability zones. The compliance is definitely the one that we use the most is in GovCloud. Within AWS, the GovCloud is an AWS region designed to address specific regulatory and compliance requirements of the United States government agencies and federal and state and local laws, local level, and the contractors, educational institutions, and other U.S. customers that run sensitive workloads. Here at the university, we do a lot of close collaborative work with the government and our professors that need a secure space for highly sensitive data, and the GovCloud provides that. Secondly, within our primary data center, we do use KMS, and we encrypt our volumes for highly sensitive data there as well, and we could back that up easily with Cloud Protection Manager. Cost effective is using definitely the incremental backups that reduces the amount of storage is needed to keep the data retained. The snapshot space and the billing is essential to keeping the cost low. Standardizing also makes it one place to streamline our process for backups. And with the Cloud Protection Manager, we can easily do that. There we go. Well, enabling, what do we do to get there as far as enabling Notre Dame to fulfill our objectives and providing a cloud-first service? Well, again, we standardized our backup and recovery process. Using the standards of our EC2 tagging and the CPM policies, we made it in a naming convention easily so our engineers can readily find instances if they had to restore from a CPM snapshot. They can easily do that. I can easily do that through the console, and they can also easily do that through the AWS console. One of the biggest part of the things that we discovered ourselves as an organization is we didn't really have much documentation for disaster recovery. During our time of our projects, we made it known to do documentation of how we can recover our services. So every time we kicked off a project or a sub-project, we basically made it a point to do a disaster recovery on those services. And when we did them, it only took 5 minutes to recover an EC2 instance, which was remarkable. And it had minimum downtime, and it covered time fastly. Beforehand, when we were on premise, it would take almost 45 minutes to an hour and depending on the data set, it could take longer to do a recovery. So it was definitely an integral, it was a very important role to keeping our daily operations up and running. Another thing that really helped us on this is we didn't have to have the ability to create our own backup service. If we had to do that, we would need to develop a new backup and recovery solution, test it, put it together and develop with a development team and put it in production. We would have spent over 4,000 hours just trying to do that. Well, with CPM, it took between 30 minutes to an hour to set up, which basically gives you 3,999 hours back. And like I said, it's a one-click solution. When we went into the AWS marketplace, it didn't take long to set up. Let's get into some scenarios here that we ran into. And one of these scenarios, as of recently, was back of March of 2008. So in March of 2008, it was during a patch cycle, we ran into a problem with a bad patch that corrupted the root drives for a couple of Linux servers. Now, knowing that we didn't have time to troubleshoot it at that moment, we had to make that decision. The platform engineer decided to do a restore of the root drive from the previous night. And he did that by creating a new volume from a CPM snapshot. He was able to easily identify the snapshot because of the standardization of the EC2 naming tags and conventions. Once he created the new volume, he detached the corrupt volume and attached the new volume, powered on the server. Service was restored within 5 minutes. But normally, if we would have done this on premise, it would have taken us 30 to 60 minutes to restore a virtual machine. So with that said, we were able to get the service back up and running and work on our troubleshooting later. One of the other scenarios that I was really fascinated with the single file restore functionality. Recently, we had an end user lose some files and folders on a Windows file share. And normally what we would have done is restore that volume like in the previous scenario. But in this case, we were able to restore the folders and files by using CPM's single file restore function. Basically, next I went into the GUI, like you saw before with Sebastian, and found the backup job, and I used the restore function to explore the file system. Once I found the files that the end user lost, I was able to take those files and download them to the location where the end user had them. The end user was up and running within minutes, and the no longer interruption or any immediate restore was exceptional. So where do we go from here as an organization? And this is where our future comes in. So what we were looking at is reducing the associated hardware physical infrastructure. When we do that, we shift the focus for the engineers to regain time to work on other projects and maintain the maintenance of business. We do have some stuff that's still left behind, but we have a smaller blueprint of hardware that's running in virtual services. Migrating the rest of our data at the end of the year is at 90% of the services to the cloud. We still have 47 other offerings to migrate. With having new services offers beyond that, we will still choose AWS as our first choice to host in the cloud. Furthermore, we are continuing to work on to improve our disaster recovery and business continuity planning. In our second phase of our DRBC project, the second stage of that will be including a second data center. And how do we get that running, and how do we basically back up our current AWS environment? And we also have to determine what kind of disaster recovery methods that we want to do. For example, backup restore, pilot light, warm standby, or multi-site. Also, finally, we're talking about closing the data center. It's part of our green initiative here at the university. With that, we're reducing the energy consumption on campus and providing a brighter and sustainable future for our students to be a better environmental partner on campus and to the community. With that said, I'd like to thank everybody for this time and opportunity to present our story to the audience. And like I would do, like I said, thank you again, and I'd like to hand it over to Benoit for questions and answers. Thank you again.
Thank you, Aaron, for sharing that great story at the university. So it's really a great story to hear. And so we are at the end of the presentation today. We do have a few minutes of Q&A time, and we do have some questions that have come in, which we are going to address now. But meanwhile, feel free to send additional questions if you have. So let's see. So the first question we have here is, how do I ensure availability for the N2WS solution itself? And Sebastian, so would you be able to answer the question?
Absolutely. That's actually an excellent question. Can't believe I forgot to mention this during my presentation, because as I mentioned, N2WS solution is just another EC2 instance in your environment, which then of course begs the question, what happens if the region that goes down is actually the region that's hosting Cloud Protection Manager? It's very simple. You can set up Cloud Protection Manager to back up itself. And then if I need to perform a disaster recovery, then all I have to do is just simply install a new blank version of Cloud Protection Manager from the marketplace. And during that install process, it will ask, oh, are you spinning up a new version of Cloud Protection Manager, or are you performing a disaster recovery? And you would just simply say, I'm performing a disaster recovery. It would find the backed up data and then just simply import that. That entire import process only takes about 30 seconds. So from complete failure of the region to Cloud Protection Manager being fully functional is about a minute and a half.
Okay, yeah, that's great. So that actually leads us way to the next question that we have. So how can I recover CPM?
So during the recovery, you would just simply go through the DR process of Cloud Protection Manager, and it's just going to offer you an import process. As I said, the entire process only takes about a minute and a half. At that point, then I can actually start recovering the rest of my production environment instances. So it's very, very easy to do.
Okay. Yeah. So let's see, what else do we have? Yes, so another important question we have here, a lot of people, when they do back up their data in the cloud, they worry about their security and privacy. I believe we already mentioned about the accreditation and certification that AWS has. And the good thing is, when you are saving your data on AWS, you automatically inherit those compliance certifications. That being said, the next question that we have here is, does N2WS have access to my backups? So what would you say to it, Sebastian?
That's an excellent question as well. So first off, Cloud Protection Manager is not a software as a service solution, which has the obvious advantages because you're not reliant on some service being up and running in order to perform backups and restores. And then obviously I don't have to entrust my backups to a service. I don't have to reveal the naming structure of my servers, nothing like that. Cloud Protection Manager never, ever have access to your backups. So CPM is installed in your environment. It belongs to you. You have full control over it. And Cloud Protection Manager never gets the data. It basically facilitates the backups. So even in case of a backup of encrypted data, cross regions, cross account, we never have the data in an unencrypted format.
Right.
So it's extremely secure.
Yes, absolutely. And another question we have here is, well, it says, can N2WS handle grandfather, father, son type scenarios? So I believe this is asking about the generation within the backups, Sebastian.
That's right. Well, that question makes a lot of sense, especially if we're talking about, hey, why not back up our mission critical database servers every 5 minutes, which is absolutely doable in Cloud Protection Manager. But at the same time, if you have a regulatory compliance need to keep your backups for 7 years, you probably start scratching your head and I was like, do I really want to keep 7 years of backups for every 5 minutes? So that's where you would just simply create that grandfather, father, son methodology with the policies. There's nothing to keep you from saying, well, for 24 hours, I'd like to take a backup in 5-minute intervals. Then after that, I'm going to take a daily backup, a weekly backup, and a monthly backup. And let's say I need to keep my backups for 7 years. Then that last policy, that monthly policy, will just simply take 84 backups. That gives me the maximum coverage in 5-minute intervals for 24 hours. But at the same time, I also satisfy my regulatory compliance need to keep my backups for a longer amount of time. So we're extremely flexible with that through the policies and the schedules.
Right. Perfect. So I believe that's all the question I have today. Yes. So, and then everybody, so this is to everyone. So as I was saying before, you will get the copy of these presentation and a video recording on YouTube, and you will have a server link, which is now on screen. Well, hold on. It's so on screen now. These are what we call a call to action. So feel free to try the N2WS solution from AWS Marketplace. Go to the N2WS website and learn more about the solution. You can also go to Amazon and start your free trial on Amazon and try the solution for yourself. And that being said, we end our broadcast for today here. Thank you everyone for attending.